What's up, family? I want to welcome you to another episode of Global Presence Talks. My name is Hakimian, and I have the honor of being on this podcast today with my amazing family and also co-workers, Jhael Hakimian. How are you, Jhael?
I'm good. How's everyone?
Good, good, good. I got my son, Jacob Hakimian. Jacob, how are you?
Doing well, thank you for asking.
Good, good, good. I think we got a few other people that are going to be joining us soon. But man, we got so much happening in the world right now. Things are just crazy. Um, as you guys know, right now the major controversy is Kanye West. Um, Last week it was the Celtics coach. This week everyone's talking about Kanye West, and he's basically at war on so many different sides. Let me just play a clip here of his interview that he did with Fox News. Let me bring this up here, and I and then we'll get into conversation about.
I care about people's responses. I care about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted than born in New York City at this point. That 50% of black death in America is abortion. So I really don't care about people's responses. I perform for an audience of one, and that's God.
All right. So I mean, he's pretty bold here, talking about his faith, but obviously he got into many other conversations. He, started talking about Jared Kushner, the deal in Israel. He got into the conversation about Adidas and Gap and White Lives Matter. He brought that conversation up. I mean, he's just. It seems that he's at war on so many different levels, and then I guess he got banned from Instagram, and now he's on Twitter, and Twitter I think ended up unpublishing some of his tweets that he made about Jewish people, and then he said Jesus is a Jew, and of course he's also at war right now with Puff Daddy, and I guess Puff Daddy spoke about his White Lives Matter shirt that he did with Candace Owen. So again, for us as a business development marketing agency, today I think the big question that we're asking, and then we're gonna also deep dive with Jhael Hakimian, who is a communications expert. You know, is Kanye West marketing communication method effective? Is it smart? Does it work? And how does Kanye West apply to the average business person? Like, is there things that they can learn from Kanye, both good and bad? Can he eat the watermelon, spit out the seed? How does his voice, this issue of helping business leaders get their voice out, which is very important in this day and age when it comes to marketing communications, is the voice of the company. There has to be a voice. Companies can no longer hide behind just products. We know that. They need an evangelist. They need a voice. They need a Steve Jobs. They need a Mark Zuckerberg. They need a face, because people just don't buy into the product, but they buy into the personality and the mission of that organization. So again, these are some big questions as we look at Ye, or Kanye West, and his marketing communication style, and the power of controversy. Is controversy effective? When is it not effective? Is there a difference between cult of personality versus institution? Is there a short game? Is there a short game reward to this versus the long game? How does this affect his other brands? So again, these are some of the top the discussions. I think we got Vincent that was able to join us. Vincent, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, team? Glad to be here.
Good, 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 good. All right. We'll dive right into this. Jacob, you're the youngest person in this conversation. What's your thoughts on Kanye West as a marketing communicator? What do you think about him?
Um, I'm sorry, I'm hearing some feedback from someone.
Oh, let me see here. Could be me.
Testing.
Testing 1 2.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah, so sorry about that. But yeah, so Kanye is really talented musician, of course. Um I enjoy his music, but I don't know if this is marketing that he's doing. I think maybe he's just been off his meds a little bit too much. But yeah, I don't obviously, of course, I don't approve of what he's tweeting out, whether he means it to be anti-Semitic or not. Twitter locked his account right after Instagram, locked his account for pretty much the same thing. He posted on both platforms anti-Semitic post. So for that reasoning, they blocked both of his accounts. So yeah, I definitely don't approve of what he's doing, whether he's going through something or not. So.
Sorry about that. I was having some mic issues here. Okay, so you think that basically it's what? Well, first of all, I disagree with you. You said I don't know if he's marketing. Everything Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, and people who are famous do is marketing.
But I
You
should
know,
have said good marketing, right? That's what I
yeah,
should have
yeah,
said.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they understand publicity, people talking about you, sales, it works. Um, uh, Jhael, what's your thoughts?
My first thought was exactly what you said. You're always marketing, if you're in the public eye, uh, because marketing is simply the message you're sending out to people about who you are, your relevancy, and your appeal. But I don't think Kanye thinks in terms of that marketing. He thinks in terms of platform and making a statement. And so he has always been someone who speaks whatever he's thinking at the moment, whatever he's thinking or saying, whatever conviction is building up in him. He has not shown himself to be someone who is calculating in terms of repercussions and people's responses. How's this going to go over? How many people are going to like it or not like it? Is this something that would get me, in Twitter jail? He doesn't think in terms of that. I will say that it has worked for him. And the reason that it works for him is because of his talent. At the end of the day, people are not buying Kanye, the thought leader. People are not buying Kanye, the moralist. People are buying Kanye, the rapper, and Kanye, the designer. Therefore, for Kanye, it works because it just puts him back in people's faces. The same way it worked for Trump. If you notice, whenever things start going away and you're not hearing about Trump for a couple of weeks, couple of months, he will say or do something really extreme. And people are like, why would he say this? Because we're now all talking about him. I don't think Kanye's motivation is that people would talk about him. It's just a byproduct, and it works because he's an artist. I think that there's going to be cost, but they're costs that he can afford, whether he's calculating them or not. For him, because his talent is so great, is so well received, he has always been this personality. Just with every billion that he makes, we pay more attention to what he's saying and doing. This is not new. I mean, if you look back, we were looking at a video of Tupac Shakur. He said very extreme things, contradictory things. He would be misogynistic towards women and then put a song out about his mama and respecting women. Only the rap community talked about it. Actually, we talked more about Tupac Shakur posthumously than we did during his actual life. Kanye has achieved a certain amount of notoriety where we talk about him even more. And since we're going to talk about him, he's going to tell us what he thinks. Since people are interviewing him, he's going to tell people what he thinks. He's not telling people what he thinks to sell a product. And that is the difference. So even though it is everything is marketing, everything is promotion, his motivation is his thought process is not about the marketing. It just so happens he's got the kind of personality that it does affect the marketing and the companies that are associated with him. Right now, the companies are in their boardrooms weighing the opportunity cost. of whether or not they continue business with him.
Okay.
They're not thinking we agree or disagree with his statement. They're just like, is it more valuable to continue to support him, or is it going to cost us way too much in capital because of our clientele?
Vincent, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, Jhael, that's definitely an interesting perspective. Um, Being able to remove that, I think you're right. I think, too long we lose what Kanye is doing if we think that it is just about marketing. I think it's something entirely different. And because of his success and his achievements, he can play in that arena, unlike other people. And so I think that if we look at it as that, he is essentially just sharing his thoughts that I think are genuine and true to where he's at, and just kind of allowing us to wrestle with it. And I think it's something that that's needed, right? This is a space that's needed to discuss these ideas, discuss these thoughts, those thoughts, and for him, I don't think it has an adverse effect in terms of the companies that are associated with him, them deciding, hey, do we want to be connected with this kind of publicity? But for him, I think it only pushes him further because there are people that it resonates with, not just the message, but even the ability to be able to share one's thoughts and could care less about what anyone else thinks, particularly anyone in the entertainment industry, right? Because his thoughts are kind of his thoughts oppose the industry that he is in. And he doesn't really care much, which does resonate with some people because it reminds them of, I think, some of the similar things that Donald Trump used to do, and that resonated with people, just kind of going against the grain, going against what most people would deem to be the talking points. He's not doing it, and he can afford to do that.
Okay.
What if all of this, if he was a marketing genius and he wanted to be a thought leader, what if all of this was simply to make the statement, don't tell me Black Lives Matter, when 50% of Black death is abortions every year? What if all of this was just so he could make that statement and be heard?
Okay. So you feel like maybe there is a social component to what he's doing. But again, I think Vincent, you said earlier, like you don't think it's necessarily marketing. Are you saying that there's another agenda? Is it political power? Is it economic power? Sales? Because wouldn't all of that require marketing? Because marketing is nothing more than bringing ideas or product or service to the marketplace so that people will buy into it. Um, and part of the buying into it is also recognizing that some people won't buy into it. So there's actual like growth component to controversy, like dividing people.
Yeah.
Um, it's we know for a fact that if there's a controversial figure, at least that controversial figure knows 50% of the people who split on his side or her side are potential consumers, followers, fans, church members, whatever like your motive is, right? Like far as what you're trying to get those people to become, right? Fans, followers, consumers, members, activists. Uh, the end goal may be different as far as what that looks like, but there is a principle in the history of time. Even figures like Buddha, who are controversial in their time, the Prophet Muhammad was controversial in his time. Jesus was controversial in his time. There's never been Martin MLK, Malcolm X, and like you said, Jhael, earlier, Tupac. And it's always posthumous, like after their death, that we begin to romanticize them, in a way that becomes mystical and uh, legendary,
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, right, they're always marketing because they're always trying to get the marketplace to buy into something. Do you guys think that his example is good for companies? Do you think that this is something that companies can emulate purpose, like intentionally, like, hey, let's go out and be controversial like Kanye West and be effective. I see Jacob, you're nodding your head, like, speak your truth.
No, I mean, I think we have to remember that he's Kanye, so he can both get away with certain things and in the midst of, and also not get away with it in terms of, oh, everybody's going to think he's crazy, but it's not going to do a lot to diminish who he is and what he's known for, throughout all the years. He's said some crazy things in the past, and he always manages to bounce back because of how gifted he is with both musically and also creatively. So I think you have to remember that. And if a regular company tried this, if Apple tried this or something, I'm sure they still have sales because of how dominant they are, but it's not the same thing as Kanye doing it, especially when people know of his mental issues, and things of that nature. So,
But let me challenge you. Apple, Google,
Mm.
major companies have taken positions on controversial issues. Gay marriage, right? Disney took a stand on um, LGBTQ curriculum in Florida. And of course, the governor DeSantis pushed back. So I think that there is case studies of companies doing their market research and saying, you know what, 60% of Americans are landing here, 40% are over here.
but
We don't really care. We don't that's not really our market. And even if it is, they're still going to use our products. But generally the world is leaning in this direction. So I think they make calculated market decisions, but they do seem to step in on controversial issues only after the wave is in their side. I see you're nodding your head, Jhael.
Well, I'll let Jacob finish what he
Oh,
was
go,
going
go.
to do now.
no. All I was gonna say was that you're completely right if the companies do that, but Kanye is not a company. I don't as smart as he is, and I know you said that everything he does is a market is him marketing. I don't think he's looking at where the wind is shifting in this specific matter. I think he just had something he wanted to say, and he decided to put it on blast, and post it publicly. So I don't think he's doing all the research. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but and you have to remember there's something that you said specifically. Oh, they take stances, but did Kanye take a stance? Because if you looked at the tweet, I just feel like he said something. But I guess it is taking a stance, but it's not like a professional stance. I would say, it was more of he let his intrusive thoughts win, and so he decided to put it on Twitter, which is why I think if he would have said it in a much better way, it wouldn't have had the blowback that it did. But instead of that, he decided to.
But he seems to understand his brand, that if he is super calculated, if he does do press conferences, it goes against his kind of like he's on the move and he's saying things freestyle, as he's being engaged by interviewers and podcasters and reporters. Jhael, what's your thoughts?
So, yes, I think the key thing you said is companies, especially large companies that depend on a large amount of the population buying their products or using their services, they are not thought leaders. They don't engage. They're not leading the charge. They wait. They calculate. They watch to see a trend, right? And where the majority of public opinion, especially their specific consumers, so they may go demographically, where they're going to fall on an issue, and then decide if they're going to capitalize on the current controversy in a way that could benefit them overall monetarily. But in the immediate, it is more your brand, right? It is that's the brand management side of marketing. Being a brand who says we want to be associated with this, we want to be known as this, we want to be known as cutting edge, we want to be known as countercultural, we want to be known as in tune, we want to be known as diverse. If we want to be known as this is one of the things we want to be known as, even though we're a lollipop company. We want to be known as the lollipop company that's an equal opportunity employer. right? Then we are watching. We're seeing where the trend is going, and we're capitalizing on that in the way that we market our products and the stance that we take, but also in the decisions we make as a corporation. We've decided to offer benefits to, before marriage equality, we're deciding to offer benefits to long-term partners, even if they're on the LGBTQ community. For example, that's the kind of company we want to be. We want you to know that about us, right? Okay, that's our strategy. 3 years before we ever tell anybody on the outside, we're going to start implementing this plan here. And we're going to start doing this for our employees. So we have a track record, and it can be proven. When we finally do come out and say, hey, we've been doing this for years already. You guys that are just catching on, we've been doing this for years. This is how. Here's a testimony from this person that's benefited in this way, this person that's been served in this way. That is very calculating. But what you won't see is big corporations, big brands being the thought leader, talking about an issue, taking a stance on an issue that is unpopular, that is obviously unpopular. It's okay to be controversial. It's just not okay to be unpopular.
Okay. Vincent, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think companies are taking positions, controversial positions, consistently, all the time. And some that we know and some that we don't know. So I don't think that that's the question that we're asking, because companies do that, and we have examples of those. Obviously, Chick-fil-A, and some other companies that have taken controversial decisions. I think companies are a little bit more calculated in terms of where is this going to fall with my bases. And I think that what's important is again, there's not that CEO is not necessarily kind of going out there and saying any and everything that they want to say, right? Primarily because they have a company that they represent, they have some people that they represent, so they're not alone. Kanye has a little bit of freedom to move like that. I mean, because yes, what effects it could have is the extended relationships, i.e. Gap, Adidas, but they're not necessarily. He's not necessarily running those companies, right? He is contributing. He's a fashion designer. He's those things when it comes to his relationship with those companies. A CEO, on the other hand, that impact might be a little bit different because the CEO there's certain chains of commands that the CEO has followed, right? Even though they're the CEO in the top, there's still like a board that they have to answer to. So it's not that they're just kind of, I just want to say whatever I want to say. And we saw that with Papa John's. Papa John's, who started his own company, it was his company. He got kicked out by the board. And so I don't think the CEO has that kind of freedom as a Kanye, but companies are doing this consistently. And I think there's a question that we're raising that I think is important to look at, right? This thing about being popular, right? I think companies are more afraid of not being popular, as Jhael said, right? And that's kind of where it's at, because they're looking at the market, they're doing their research to see where the market is going, and then they're making decisions off of that. And some decisions, very rarely are companies making unpopular decisions. That they're just not going to risk it like that because they just don't know. They're not clear. I mean, they know it's going to hurt their bottom line, and so if they can take the hit with the bottom line and take a stance, because it's interesting enough. I think the market. And I don't know that obviously there are researchers that have done this work and can tell based on the numbers what's better. But the market are probably people that take a stance. The market tend to agree with it. There's a reason why those like Trump and Kanye still do remain relevant like that. These individuals take positions. Even as we look at Ron DeSantis, he's taking positions that are not popular, but yet there's still a good bit of support there, right? And so just kind of looking at that, it doesn't always fall the way that the CEO or the companies or the corporations think it's going to fall. But just being able to recover from that and bounce back from that, knowing that, hey, you got to consider the cost, right? That there's a cost, and hey, we're clear about it. It aligns with our mission. It aligns with our values, and then that's just what we're going to do. We're going to go in that direction.
Right. A good point would be, even if it's not popular by the populace, when you look at your demographic,
right,
it's popular with your demographic. It's approved by your demographic.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is that Chick-fil-A, In-N-Out Burger, these are not board-run corporations. These are still owned by the families. They still, right? I'm sure they have board of directors and things like that. But Chick-fil-A, when Chick-fil-A entered that controversy, it was still the original owner, and he wasn't in the same situation as Papa John's was, right? He controls heavily his. He's not a. It's not a franchise in the traditional sense of a franchise. In-N-Out Burger, still not a franchise. It is a chain that is still owned by a family member, is running that company, which, and that's why they can still print John 3:16 on the bottom of their cups, and nobody's batting an eye because you already know what you're getting. That's why when there's someone called for a boycott of Chick-fil-A at one point, even the people that were supposed to be affected by the owner's statements on Chick-fil-A, they were like, when you find me a better fried chicken sandwich, you're a boycott. In-N-Out Burger, same type of thing. And so when the difference there is those sole proprietorships, those small family, small in terms of the power at the top, it's still an individual person or family, as opposed to having to think about shareholders and your board and things like that. They still, and what's crazy is a lot of times they're not making statements on behalf of the company. When you have a controversy like that, someone's pulled out something that they heard him say for this, for that. They're not doing it in terms, the difference between Kanye as an individual, he's always representing the brand that is Kanye.
Alma Puente wrote, he is definitely a good communicator. He doesn't always say what people want to hear, but that's part of being a strong communicator. He is controversial, breaks down the status quo, and has people questioning things all the time.
Yes.
And then, let me see, Jimmy Productions wrote, Kanye is his own boss and is not really chained up by anyone, so he can say statements that are not popular and still keep his fan base. Wow, that's pretty powerful. So it seems to be that there is a difference between an individual brand that has grown its fan base by the very de facto that it is controversial and saying things that always question, like Alma wrote, question people's positions, and a company that people expect to be neutral around social issues because they're delivering a product or service to the general community. So, and I think that for example, like Adidas, here we go here. Adidas, took a strong position on BLM, right? Black Lives Matter, and that kind of hurt them a little bit. There was a lot of Anglos and non-blacks that have issue with BLM as an organization versus BLM as a movement with a message, right? I think most people agreed with the BLM message, which was Black Lives Matter, and we do need to deal with historical injustices in those communities, versus the wealth that was acquired by key BLM members, the political posturing, the wholesale kind of endorsement of the Democratic Party versus being truly what's the term nonpartisan, because really you're trying to get all people, whether they're independent, libertarian, Republican, Democrat, just people in general, on caring about a topic that deals with humanity, right? But when I think Kanye's issue with BLM is probably more that organizational, political kind of posturing versus a true organic movement, which I saw myself as part of the movement, and proudly I supported the Black Lives Matter movement and still will in its core message, that there is something about Black lives, which is ironically what Kanye brings up in his rant on Fox, which is Black babies are being aborted in mass numbers, which is creating depopulation of the Black community in America. And
If
that's
I could
something.
add to that, so much so that a couple of years ago, for the first time, Hispanics surpassed African Americans in percentage rates of population, not just growth, but as far as For a long time, blacks were a few percentage points ahead in far as who was more, who's black. It was whites and then blacks, and then Hispanics and then others. Now it is whites and then Hispanics and then blacks and then others in population.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, so the lesson here I think that we need to consider is the fact that like Kanye is to some degree an effective marketing communicator, but he seems to be going over the line when it comes to issues of privacy, when it comes to issues that are intimate. In fact, someone wrote on YouTube, Tamani wrote, I think some or majority of Kanye's actions towards his family are abusive, like publicly exposing family problems. Imagine the reaction and feelings of his children in the future. So, I mean, this is absolutely true, but his argument seems to be that the Kardashians were basically working against him, trying to set up a narrative of him being crazy, and therefore most likely trying to work to take his kids away. Now, again, that seems to be his counter response, which is a legitimate issue when it comes to men,
Yeah.
fathers who are in child custody battles. And I have talked with and worked with men
Yep.
who are demonized through the process of divorce and child custody issues. It seems that he was trying to use his public voice to deal with that. Again, it seems that he does cross the line in his continuous uh, conversations about bringing up Kim's name. Like sometimes I'm just like, why are you bringing up Kim right now? It just seems so off. Jacob, you had something to say?
Yeah. So if you want, whether it's custody of your kids or you want your kids back or you want to see your kids, doing what he did is not the way to go about it. Especially if it was to, be brought up in the court of law. I don't think anybody will look at it and be like, you aired out your family's public, your family's issues in public because maybe you were trying to draw attention to it. Maybe you just want people to know what was going on. Either way, discounting even the law of a court of what could happen, what people could bring up on you, his kids in the future, or even now, because they're not some of them are super young, but I'm sure they're smart enough to realize what he's doing, and I don't think that was at all the right way to go about it whatsoever. No matter what he was feeling, no matter what his defense was, there's just certain things you don't do, especially as a father. I feel like so. Yeah.
I'll say this much. And I think he might have said this in that interview with Tucker Carlson, right? What we're seeing publicly, there had been some other conversations that have been going on privately, and he just kind of seemed like that he wasn't getting anywhere, and this seemed to be the thing that helped him to finally get somewhere. And so I think to that degree, I think sometimes when things come out publicly, there's been some other things going on privately that we just don't know. It's just now hitting the fan, and the rest of us are privy to it. So those kind of conversations that were happening before, no way for us to know what that looked like, what that was, because who knows what those prior conversations were like until they finally hit it publicly. Has that changed? That's the effects, right? Has it changed? I mean, his custody with his children. I don't know how much of it, what was the effects of it. But yeah, I think that's as far as we got. When it makes public, there's been some other things going on privately that we're not aware of at that point.
Okay. Last question here. Why has Kanye's net worth increased despite his controversial stuff? What do you have to say about that, Jhael?
The value that people put on him is not his thoughts or his conduct or his morals. The value that he provides to our society is his creativity through his music and his fashion.
Okay. Any other thoughts here?
Yeah, and while the value is with his music and his fashion, his thoughts keep him before us. And as long as he is steady staying before us and he is pumping the things out, he's going to continue to be talked about. People are going to want to know more about him, right? All you got to do is just click on one thing, one article with him, and then your news feed is just filled with articles about him. And there is plenty of news about him. I mean, this is just ridiculous in terms of how we're following this guy's life. And so his value is certainly on the music and what he's producing in fashion. At the same time, the controversy keeps him relevant. It does play to help make sales, and it does play to make people want to go get more, stand in line to get his product, because this guy he's constantly in the news, for good or for bad. He's constantly in the news. We got to get his stuff.
Over the weekend, Washington Post, Reuters, BBC, New York Times, Variety magazine, the Christian Business thing, Deadline, NBC News, CBS News, and that's just to start. Over the weekend, Kanye.
And Kanye with Tucker Carlson, like that was like, wow, that is interesting that Kanye sitting across Tucker Carlson. Like I thought just that picture, that's interesting. How many other rappers is Tucker Carlson interviewing? How many other fashion designers is he sitting down and talking with? Not many. So
Yeah. And then Jhael Hakimian, I know that you are involved with helping people with communications. Can you share with us why do you love helping people with communications, and how would you help Kanye in this as a PR director or communications coach?
I'll take his phone. No, I'm kidding. I love helping people with communications because one of the things I think number one, I come from an immigrant family. And so I think something that immigrants learn is that learning the language technically does not always prepare you for being able to navigate the society or the subculture or the industry that you are part of. There's a whole nother subset of lingo depending on where you are. And so I love helping people begin to understand that communication is not just getting out, it's getting through, right? And so being able to effectively communicate the heart behind what you want people to know about you or understand, or how you want to affect or change people, but also being able to really understand what the person talking to you is truly saying. Because that word that has this one technical formal meaning a lot of times carries a whole lot of other meaning behind it, depending on the timing of it, the context it's in, the industry that you're talking about with that individual, and all sorts of things. So helping people being able to navigate that so they can become more effective and more successful in whatever it is they're doing is why I love helping people with communication. How would I help Kanye? I would ask him, what is it you really want to accomplish?
Okay.
If all you want to do is stir some people up, if you just want to say what you want to say, get it out so you can feel better, like, good, there, I said it, done. Keep at it, bruh. You do you, more power to you, like seriously. But if you actually want to change hearts and minds immediately, we might be able to think of some more effective posturing that you could use in your communication. So the first thing I would ask him, that's the first thing I ask anybody else, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Okay. And then tell me a little bit about some of the work that you do in communications and how you can help people.
So one of the bread and butter of what I do is really helping people tell their story. Tell their story in a way that enables them to communicate effectively a good picture of who they are in a short amount of time. a lot of times there's so much that people want to tell people about them as an individual or them as a company or a specific experience. And it is not having the desired effect we want with our listeners or with our audience. And so one of the important, I think most important things that I do, the bread and butter of what I do, is working with people on their company story, their personal story, why it is you do what you do, how it is you got here and how you do the things you do effectively, and what would be the benefit to other people in partnering with you. And if we can get people to begin to refine those 3 key points on their message and then see everything else that they add to their messaging as the embellishments and the extra details, that would be great. The second part is once they got down packed that really good story, making sure they understand those embellishments and details, which ones are going to be the most effective with particular audiences. This word goes over well with this audience, this word doesn't. This imagery really resonates with this audience. When you use this imagery, here's the story you're telling about you as an individual, you as a brand, you as a company. Is that the story you need to be telling in this particular moment? Is that going to help you achieve that goal? And that's the main thing of what I think the value that I bring to the people and the companies that I work with.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And Vincent, any questions for Jhael as a communicator? Anything you have for her?
Yeah, Jhael, something I've been picking up on and listening a lot of is this thing about story, and you even mentioned it, trying to get someone to tell their story. What are you looking? What are you hearing for in the story? What's the thing that you're pulling out in one story?
The main thing is the why.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you something different than probably what you've heard from everyone else. I wish that Simon Sinek hadn't, basically trademarked the why. If you guys don't know Simon Sinek, he is a great person to listen to for how to tell your story and how to communicate. He talks about starting with why. That is the main thing I'm listening for. But when I'm looking for how to help people with their why, I'm listening for a couple of other elements. I'm really listening for the words that paint a picture, the imagery, those type of things, the things that really, if you want to tell someone, I'm a great person, I'm a generous person, I care about this issue, it is more effective that you exemplify that with a quick story or something else that kind of gives a hint to that value than to say it.
Yeah.
Because the listener feels like they are just making that decision about you, not that you are imposing a perception upon them.
Yeah.
That means they're more readily going to accept that perception because they've come to the conclusion themselves by listening to you. And so if you can effectively convey values, skill set, even your repertoire as far as your resume, the things you've done, without having to list them out. I work with a lot of people that run for office or have run for office, and when they tell their story, they love to start with their resume.
Yeah.
They love to start their name and title. And I tell them, nobody cares about your title.
Yeah.
People care about what you're going to do that's going to benefit them. It's WIFM, WIIFM. What's in it for me? That's what people really care about when they're listening to you. And so the why of why you do tells people that what value you have that makes you very trustable and reliable because you're doing it because of this value and conviction. And then the what of what you do when you're conveyed in a way that shows people the value for them, the benefit of partnering with you, the quality of the engagement they're going to get from you. Those are things that is most valuable in communication.
Yeah. That's good.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been good. And we try to have these conversations every Monday around major business, communications, marketing, social issues that relate to, again, business leadership, nonprofit leadership, ways that we can grow, things that we can learn. And this morning, as I was basically walking and reflecting on our podcast, I was thinking like, wow, like it's so important that we reflect and meditate on the decisions that major leaders are making, from the Elon Musk to the the Kanye West to the Joe Bidens, and really learn. Like, we need to really reflect. I have a feeling that people are absorbing so much social media and news that they don't think and reflect on it enough to say, what's the lesson here for me? And I think the lesson is, and you find some of these lessons in ancient texts like the scriptures, where leaders can get prideful and start saying off the wall things and doing off the wall things. David, right? King David, he got really prideful and he felt like the rules did not apply to him, and he got his butt into a lot of trouble. Um, but at the same time, leaders could be doing great things and we misunderstand them. You know, many leaders throughout history, from generals to political leaders to religious leaders, were misunderstood. So I am always reflecting on how much of what they're doing I'm misunderstanding, or I'm getting a nuanced view of them because the media wants me to see them a certain way.
Yes.
Because King David, for example, went through a season where he deliberately acted crazy because for his own survival. And how much of that is going on? Where there's deliberate, intentional messaging so that you can save something, Because I was thinking about the White Lives Matter shirt. Like, I was thinking about it from a marketing perspective. Why would Kanye do this as far as a chess game? When it, like, what strategy, because business development strategy and marketing requires thought. Like, once you send out a action, it's going to have a certain reaction. And I was thinking, why? Because of this beef that he's having with Adidas and Gap. He's trying to renegotiate, or not renegotiate, but I think he's trying to get out of certain contracts with them. So guess what? Adidas and Gap, just so you don't get it twisted, black people have influence, but we do not have purchasing power like Anglos. When it really comes down to it, okay, this is why the abortion issue is so important. Like, we need more black babies in the world, politically, economically. When your population is being terminated, where they don't even have a voice. They can't even get to 12 years of age versus 24, 25. And I say that from my own faith perspective. But even from an economic perspective, and like each child, every individual is worth billions of dollars. Okay, is worth is worth a vote. So I was thinking, man, with this battle with Adidas, he may be posturing himself in a way where he is basically speaking to the white base that Adidas and Gap depends on. Because, and he's highlighting the fact that these organizations were pro BLM, even to the detriment of, like in Minnesota, or when the big, controversy happened, with what's his name's death, and some of the, the rioting and things that happened. My mind is going blank on the individual that was killed.
George Floyd.
Yes, George Floyd. Yes, and I should know that, but there was so much controversy around how effective is burning and looting and rioting, and many whites who were pro BLM movement and are concerned about black people, kind of, the polling showed they kind of like took a step back and said, wait, here we go again. Is this another Rodney King situation? And of course, you had that white gentleman that went over there with the gun, Rittenhouse or Wittenhouse or something.
Rittenhouse.
Yeah, and he ended up, killing a couple, So the point of it is, a lot of the companies kind of pulled back a little bit. So now Kanye, by highlighting White Lives Matter, which no BLM, no black person disagrees with that sentiment, right? Most in good faith would say, yes, white people's lives matter, Latinos' lives matter, everyone's lives matter. But we're highlighting the unique judicial and legal injustices that are happening to Black people with this movement, though the message and the politics got kind of convoluted. But now by saying that statement, right, he is endearing himself to white people, and that's why Vincent, he would show up on Fox News. Very intentional, very calculated, which again I would challenge even Jacob's thought that maybe Kanye is not intentional, but he's just kind of flying off the handle. I think that's the problem with Kanye, is that people think that rappers that are talented are not calculating and deliberate and understand the political, social, religious landscape. And it seems that Kanye is more of a genius when it comes to that respect. And I would submit Jay-Z is another one. Him and Jay-Z are from a different cloth, a different level, because Jay-Z's calculating, but he's the opposite of Kanye. People say who know Jay-Z, and that's the brand he has, that he's sneaky, he's sly, he's quiet. He's going to kill you softly with a song. Again, I don't know, but that's the brand that I hear from hip hop culture, that of artists and rappers that know him, that he's the opposite of Kanye, where Kanye is the roaring lion and Jay-Z is more of the sly serpent. My faith tells me both are appropriate at times, to be a loud, obnoxious prophet and also to be a cunning serpent who's wise as a serpent but gentle as a dove, you know? So I don't know which approach is better or worse, but I do think that both of them, both the Jay-Z style and the Kanye style, when it comes to business growth, brand growth, are effective, and don't underestimate the thoughtfulness of these individuals and the way they understand race. And I'm going to end with this. I think like Trump and Obama, all great politicians, they're double-tongued. That's why Kanye one week could be like, look, Black people, you need to stand with me because we're tired of Adidas and Gap and all these brands taking advantage of us as Black people, Black artists. And then the next week say White Lives Matter and basically go on Fox and pander to white people. At the end of the day, some of the most clever politicians and marketing communicators have an ability to be triple, double tongued. And that is, in one group, they pander and say one thing, another group, they say nothing. And we know they're doing it, but long as they keep telling us what we want to hear, we keep forgiving them and we keep loving them and we keep buying their Kool-Aid. And I'll stop there. Peace.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye.